Assalamu alaikum. Okay, ji. So today's topic is about chapter number 9 of your book, that is industrial sector of Pakistan. We are going to talk about the industrial sector, and we are going to discuss the various details pertaining to the industrial sector. So herein, first of all, we are going to talk about an industry, what an industry is. So basically an industry is a place where raw material is converted into finished goods using labor and machinery. If we talk about the industries by type, so industries can be divided into three types. We have the primary industries. Primary industries are the industries wherein raw material is taken by the people, is collected by the people, and is sold out without any modification. For example, hunting, what a hunter is going to do is going to he's going to hunt down the animals and he's going to sell them. Fishing, what a fisherman is going to do is going to catch the fish and is going to sell the fish. He is not doing any kind of modification in it. Such kind of activities are called as the primary activities. A woodcutter is also involved in a primary industry or a primary activity. The second kind of industry that we have is a secondary industry, wherein raw material, the shape of the raw material or the type of the raw material is modified into finished goods. That is called as a secondary industry. For example, if a woodcutter sells, or if wood is taken and the wood is modified into furniture, that is going to be called as a secondary industry. If apples are taken and apple jam is made out of it, that is also called as a secondary industry. The third one that we have is tertiary industry. Now what the tertiary industry is, tertiary industry actually relates to the service sector. Tertiary industry is actually all about insurance, banking, education. If you go to the doctor, he treats you. That is also a tertiary industry, wherein the doctor is not producing anything, but he's providing his services to you. A lawyer is providing you his legal services. So that is also called as a tertiary industry. The next thing that we need to understand is industries by size. So as per the size, if we talk about, so industries are divided into three types. We have the large scale industries. Large scale industries are those industries wherein large amount of labor is employed and a huge amount of investment has been done, and a wide variety of products are made available. And such kind of large scale industries are known by everyone across the world, across the country. For example, Apple company produces iPhones, iPads, Mac PCs. Heavy investment has been done. Everyone knows about it. Everyone is aware about it. A large amount of labor is working in such industries is called as large scale industry. Nestle company is another example of a large scale industry. The next that we have is a small scale industry. What is a small scale industry? A small scale industry is one wherein basically there is going to be less labor, less power resources, less things, less investment is going to be required, and less production is going to be done. Obviously, the product is not going to be available all across the world. It is going to be available on a specific area only. That is called as a small scale industry. The third that we have is the cottage industry. What is a cottage industry? This is something technical. Pay attention here. Cottage industry is one wherein there is no premises acquired, no labor has been hired. A person starts working at his home and starts selling goods from his home is called as a cottage industry. For example, the woman sewing clothes at home and selling them, it is a cottage industry. Pottery making, flower vase making, carpet making, painting, all of these industries are cottage industries wherein you are not basically getting a separate premises or hiring labor for that. You're doing it at your home. That is called as a cottage industry. So if a poor person is there with less investment, then the best available option is a cottage industry. The next thing is that what are the factors required for industrialization? So if we talk about the factors required, so the factors can be divided into two categories. First, we have the natural factors. The natural factors are also called as the physical factors. So we have the area, we have the suitable climate, we have flat land, water, if required. These are the natural factors which are required when we talk about setting up an industry. Any kind of industry or producing any product is going to be set up in an area, then these are some of the important factors which are required. Moving on further, we have some of the socio-economic factors as well, or the human factors which are required for an industry, which include labor. Obviously, labor is going to be required. Capital, which means investment. Yes, investment is going to be required. Machinery. Yes, for production nowadays, machinery is required. If machinery is required, then for running the machinery, power resources is also a thing which is going to be required. Once the product has been produced, it needs to be advertised. So advertisement is required. Once the product has been produced, it requires to be transported to the market. So transportation is going to be required. Insurance of the products is also going to be required, so that is another factor. And training to the labor so that the efficiency of the labor can increase is another important factor which is going to be required once we talk about industrialization. So any kind of industry that we open is going to require at least these factors. There can be many other factors as well. However, these are some of the basic factors which are going to be required. So we are going to study the small scale industries and the large scale industries of Pakistan. So first of all, we are going to talk about the bricklayer industry. We are going to talk about the sports industry, surgical equipment industry. Today we are going to talk about the tourism industry as well. These are some of the small scale industries of Pakistan. So we are going to talk about them. Moreover, apart from the kind or the type of industries, there are some other terms as well that you need to understand, which is the difference between the formal sector and the informal sector. Now, what is the difference between the formal sector and the informal sector? You need to understand it clearly. Actually, if work is done in a proper premises, using proper paperwork, policies, procedures, labor is there, the business is registered, XYZ, if this kind of a business or an industry is being operated, that is called as a formal sector. So any office, any industry that is operating nowadays, we are going to call it as the informal sector. However, if a business is being operated with no paperwork, no training, no policies, no procedures, even no registration, that is called as an informal sector. A very good example of an informal sector is a newspaper stall. A person selling newspapers on a stall, or the traditional hawkers or the peddlers that come by in your locality, and they are selling at times ice creams, or they are selling different stuff, or the peddlers or the hawkers, what we call is a thele wala, who is standing at the corner of the road and is selling some cheap items. He is having no paperwork, no policies, no procedures, no insurance, no training. At times the business is even not registered with the government. That kind of a business is called as an informal sector. Informal sector is highly unreliable. The business can end anytime due to unreliability. The profits are low. If a person is being hired, then the salaries are usually low as well. So informal sector and informal sector does not promotes the progress or the economic progress of the country. It is not going to substantially contribute to the increase in GDP of the country. However, as we talk about the formal sector is going to generate high profits. It is going to pay to the government higher. It is going to generate or contribute to the GDP as well. It is going to pay higher salaries to the people as well. So formal sector is better for the economic progress of the country. However, for the economic progress, the informal sector does not contribute so well. But there is another thing that we need to understand is that the informal sector is also beneficial. Why is it beneficial? Is because the informal sector is beneficial for the unskilled labor. The people who are unskilled, who are illiterate, they can get jobs at the informal sector. The informal sector is beneficial for the poor people because they can start such business with low investment. The informal sector is beneficial for the poor customers because they can buy cheap products from this informal sector. So yes, informal sector is beneficial up to some extent, but if we talk about the progress of the country, then the formal sector is highly recommended. Talking about the problems of a large scale industry and a small scale industry that we are going to discuss. So if we talk about a large scale industry, obviously it is going to require large amount of labor, large area of land, large investment is going to be required. Since it is going to produce on a large scale, so it is going to produce a high degree of pollution as well. High amount of power resources will also be consumed once large scale industry is opened. And large scale industry can only be opened in an area where high amount of labor is easily available. What if in Pakistan we talk about that a large scale industry is going to be opened in Balochistan, then the average population in Balochistan is very low. So such a large scale industry will not be fruitful in Balochistan if we are opening an industry in Balochistan. Heavy mechanical complex or expensive machinery, yes, and this is another thing which is going to be required once we are going to talk about a large scale industry. Training, yes, training is also going to be required in case of a technical job. Yes, training is another issue which is going to be faced because the large scale industry is going to specialize, and for the purpose of specialization, for the purpose of efficient production, training to the labor is required. So yes, training can be an additional cost for the company. Talking about a small scale industry cannot produce a wide variety of products. A small scale industry cannot pay high salaries to the people. A small scale industry is not going to contribute to the GDP substantially. बहुत ज्यादा contribution increase in GDP यानी local production country की बहुत ज्यादा नहीं बढ़ाएगी. A small scale industry cannot offer employment to a wide variety of people. Obviously, small scale industry है, ठीक है. If a small scale industry is there, it cannot pay high taxes to the government, तो government का revenue भी कम हो जाएगा. तो ये कुछ problems हैं small scale industry की, और हमारे पास जो problems we have discussed about large scale industry. So this is how it is. So moving on further, the next thing that we need to discuss is about some of the small scale industries in Pakistan. What are they? How do they operate? We are going to discuss about them, and then we are going to move on further towards some of the other technical terms. We are going to talk about that as well. So talking about one of the small scale industry in Pakistan is the bricklane industry. Now, what is a bricklane industry? A bricklane industry is an industry which basically produces bricks. Let me show you the picture of a bricklane industry. This is how a bricklane industry looks like. This is a clan, and herein these kind of bricks are basically produced. What in the examination is important for a bricklane industry is the process of a bricklane industry, how the bricks are being produced, that you need to remember. So a bricklane industry, the industries are there in Punjab, they are in Sindh, and in some of the other areas as well in Pakistan. It is a small scale industry. The raw material that is required is clay, water, and coal, and cheap labor. Obviously, the child labor of the Afghan refugees, which are a cheap source of labor, are going to be a requirement. What is the process? You need to mix the clay with water. That is the step number one. Clay is required to be mixed with water. Step number two is that you need to mold that mixture in the shape of bricks. This is how it is shown in the picture. Once you have molded the bricks, you need to leave them so that they can dry in sunlight. That is step number three. Once they have dried, you need to take these bricks to the kiln wherein they are going to be baked at very high temperature. The temperature is going to be about 200 degrees centigrade or 300 degrees centigrade. And this is how the bricks are going to be produced. The second important thing that is going to be assessed in the examination is what are the environmental hazards that are going to be produced out of this bricklane industry. So air pollution, obviously, since a lot of smoke is going to be emitted out of the kiln, so air pollution is going to be created on a large scale. Noise pollution, yes, the noise pollution is also going to be created. Obviously, if the bricks are going to be baked and everything, so noise pollution, yes. And the most important thing, heat on a large scale is going to be generated, which is going to lead to a rise in temperature in the area. So these are some of the environmental hazards when we talk about a bricklane industry. Talking about the other small scale industries of Pakistan. So the other small scale industries that we have are the sports industry. Sports industry, the majority of the sports industries are located in Sialkot. What do they produce is saucer balls or soccer balls or cricket bat and cricket balls and tennis balls and other stuff. The sports industries had started in 1994. Pakistan produces one of the best sport products across the world. The best sport products are available in Pakistan. So, and these sports products are having a high demand in the international market. However, this is a picture of a sports industry in Sialkot. If you see this picture, A very big drawback that is being observed in these industries is that manual labor is being applied therein. You can see manual labor, everything is being done manually, no machinery is available. So that is a very big drawback, that no technology is applied therein and still work is done manually. That is not going to increase the efficiency of work. So no technology, no skilled labor, nothing, unskilled labor is available there, and illiterate people are working. And this is why this industry, sports industry, is still operating on a small scale. It is not, it has not been producing things on a large scale. The next industry that is a small scale industry is the surgical equipment industry. Again, these kind of industries are located at Sialkot. Over 2,300 companies are there in Pakistan. And majority of the surgical equipment goods are exported. So it means that it is adding value to the exports of Pakistan. It is generating foreign revenue for the country. So yes, it is beneficial. What are the instruments that are being produced? Are beauty instruments, dental instruments, diagnostic instruments, or manicure instruments, etc. are being produced therein. The next industry that is important from examination point of view is the tourism industry that you need to understand. Now, what is a tourism industry? The tourism industry means that basically if the tourists are going to visit your country, so all the factors that are associated with the tourist or the tourism, which includes the sites, the attractions, historical places, restaurants, car rentals, equipment shops, or the souvenir shops, everything is a part of the tourism industry. So the tourism industry itself is going to be some advantages and disadvantages both. If we talk about the advantages associated with the tourism industry, so the tourism industry is going to, first of all, generate employment for the people. It is going to be a source of income for the people in the form of the tourist facilities that are going to be provided, such as hotels, car rental agencies, restaurants, tour companies, souvenir shops, equipment shops, etc. All are the advantages of the tourism industry. Moreover, the profit that has been earned out of the tourism industry, it can be reinvested into the country. It can be a source of revenue for the government, and it can be a source of building better infrastructure for the country. It can be a source of providing better education to the people so that the literacy rate in the country can be increased as well. This is another advantage of the tourism industry. The third advantage of the tourism industry is that it promotes international connections, which can bring more business and international collaborations in the long term. It also promotes cross-cultural awareness for both locals and tourists and builds bridges of understanding between cultures. So your culture is going to be promoted, your traditions are going to be promoted, so your nation or the reputation of the country is going to be promoted all over. More production will lead to higher GDP. Yeah, obviously, if the tourists are going to come in the country, so the production of the country is going to increase. So obviously, more production means higher GDP in the country. And do remember that higher GDP means more economic growth. So yes, more economic growth is also going to occur in the country. Let's talk about some of the disadvantages which are being associated with the tourism industry. So the disadvantages that we are having is, first of all, the environmental damage that is going to occur. What is the environmental damage? Obviously, if there are more people that are going to come into your country, so more resources are going to be utilized, which means a burden upon the resources. More air pollution is going to occur, more noise pollution is going to occur. Obviously, more people means more utilization of resources, more activities, so more pollution. The second disadvantage is that the historical sites are going to require continuous maintenance, because if the tourists are going to come to visit the historical attractions and other stuff, so yes, the sites or the historical attractions, they might be deteriorated by the tourist, so that needs to be maintained at all cost. So that is going to be a cost for the country. The third disadvantage is that this tourism is a cultural or is a seasonal business. Maybe 6 months in a year, tourism is going to occur. For the rest of the 6 months, there's going to be no business for the country. So all the people who are going to be associated with the tourism industry are going to remain unemployed for the time when there's going to be no tourism. That is another disadvantage. Also, there is a threat to your local culture. What if the tourists are going to come into your country and the local people get inspired out of the culture of the tourists, and they get attracted to it, and they adopt the culture of the tourists? So that is going to be another problem that is going to be associated. So this is how tourism can be hazardous. Talking about the factors, that what are the factors required for development of tourism? So the government requires to pay attention to security. Better security, political stability is required to be ensured in the country so that the tourist can come into your country. Maintenance of historical sites and attractive places is required to be done by the government. That is the second important thing. Heavy investment is required to develop the tourism industry. So that is the part of government as well. If the government is not doing it on their own, they should provide loans on easy terms to the people so that they can promote the tourism in the country. The fourth important thing is management. There should be a department of tourism which should address the issues of the tourism. Let's say if a tourist loses his passport, or if the tourist is facing any kind of issue in the country, he wants to travel, he wants to inquire something, so there should be a department. That means proper management for the tourism industry, or a proper department should be set up by the government wherein the tourist could address their issues. Moreover, the government can attract the tourist by advertisement of the country internationally. They can attract the tourists. They can provide incentives to the tourists, such as discounts or other attractions, so that the tourists can visit your country. And this is how the tourism industry is going to be promoted. So these are some of the factors that the government needs to ensure. Also, introducing the modern technology, better communication facilities, and better transportation is another factor which is required to be made available once tourism industry is required to be promoted. So a question can come in the examination asking you anything. Either the question can be in the examination asking you about what are the factors required for tourism, or how tourism can be developed. So again, you need to mention the factors for developing tourism. Or the question can ask you the advantages and the disadvantages pertaining to the tourism industry. So this is how it is. Moving on further, the next thing that you need to remember about tourism industry is the names of some of the cultural attractions of Pakistan. They are available there in your book. So you need to remember the names of some of the cultural attractions. So this is how because the culture, a question like this, for example, this is a question. Describe the cultural attractions of Pakistan. This is a question for 4 marks. So you need to learn the names of any 3 or 4 cultural attractions, such as we have the Hunza Valley, we have the Minar-e-Pakistan in Lahore, or we have the 4 forts are there in Lahore, or other historical sites are there all across Pakistan. So the names of any 3 or 4 cultural attractions and their brief description is required to be learned by you. That is a task. Moreover, the topics that we have covered today, so you can attempt the questions that are, first of all, question number 2, up to what extent tourism can be developed in Pakistan? Now, this is a question for 6 marks. So therein you are required to write down 3 strategies that how tourism can be developed. So it means that you are going to write down any 3 factors which are required for developing tourism industry. Then in the second paragraph, you are going to address 3 problems or the disadvantages of the tourism industry. And then finally, you are going to give a conclusion. Acha, the conclusion is up to you. You can conclude that the tourism industry is an important factor required for the economic contribution or the economic development of Pakistan, since the government is required to address the problems of tourism. So anything like that can be done. Moreover, describe the problems of small scale industries in Pakistan. That is also a question that you can do very easily. What are the problems of the informal sector? That is also a question that we have discussed. You can do it easily. Question number 8, describe the factors required to determine the development of tourism in Pakistan. That is also a question you can do very easily. Moreover, question number 7 is the Q box question on page 182 of your book. Refer to the Q box question. You know how to answer a Q box question. You need to agree with one statement, you need to disagree with the other, and you need to mention 3 reasons for each of the statement. So do refer to these questions as well. So this is these are some of the important things of the chapter industry. Do refer to them.